think you should.
Not too long ago, I made a video regarding DPS heroes and the buffs that I think they were going to potentially receive. Given that Soldier 76 is so powerful, I think Overwatch wants to make all of the DPS heroes about on that level, so just as viable as Soldier is. However, since then, Geoff Goodman, not Jeff Kaplan, has made a statement regarding some of their design philosophies and ideas behind balancing heroes, and I'd like to share those with you because he confirmed that he doesn't really want to change Reaper's Wraith form. If you watched my last video, it will be linked somewhere. If you watched that, you'll know that I said Reaper should be able to cancel his Wraith form. And Geoff Goodman decided to go ahead and tell us why he doesn't like to do that. So let's go over that, talk about if it's good design philosophy or not, and maybe potentially discuss some other DPS changes that could be needed. So someone brought the idea of being able to cancel Wraith form to the Battle.net forums, and Geoff Goodman actually saw this and responded. The initial question was, would Wraith form be too powerful if you could cancel out of it? And Geoff Goodman's response was, it's not out of the question, but there is a benefit to having these sorts of all-in feeling abilities in the game at large. Other similar abilities are Roadhog's Heal and Reinhardt's Charge. I'd really like to kind of talk about this before we move on to the rest of the passage, because I don't actually agree with Geoff Goodman here. Roadhog's Heal and Reinhardt's Charge are all-in abilities, that is without a doubt. If you're healing as Roadhog, you are sacrificing a few seconds of your time not being able to move or shoot, and if you're going to charge as Reinhardt, you are volunteering yourself to jump right into the enemy team or wherever you're facing without being able to go back. Both of the abilities are all-in abilities because they make you vulnerable in one way or another. Reaper's Wraith form, though, isn't really what I would consider an all-in ability. It's not something that makes you vulnerable when you use it. It's almost exclusively used to escape. Actually, it is exclusively used as an escape. If you're aggressively using Wraith form, you are crazy and you're not playing a Reaper right. So why would this escape? Why would you have to all in on an escape? I feel like the game is more dynamic and more fun if you're like pulling out and you're like, oh, I need to escape, but your team follows up with you and you say, you know what, I'm going right back in. I got that heal from Ana, I'm gonna just turn around and play aggressively. Why should you need to all in on your escape from the fight? Because that's what you have to do. The enemy team knows exactly when you're coming out of Wraith form, so it's not the easiest thing in the world to follow up on as you leave it. They can shoot you as you're coming out of it, like before you shoot them, and they can backpedal away and move away from you, and it's very hard to follow up after a Wraith form and jump back into the fight. And on top of this, if you evade a very powerful ability, if you evade a Sleep Dart, or a Roadhog Hook, or a Flashbang with your Wraith form, you still have to all in on your escape. Even though you just dodge an ability, it's a 1v1, you still have to leave because the enemy knows exactly when you're leaving Wraith form. And a good Hog, a good McCree, and even a good Ana can deal with you, maybe not the Ana, but the other two can deal with you even after you leave Wraith form. Makes it a real pain. Ana can just anti-heal you right away. It's just, when you have to use Wraith form, it feels really bad. You don't feel like, wow, I just outplayed them. You feel like, wow, this is now on a cooldown, and I got nothing out of it. That's what Wraith form feels like right now. The next statement Geoff made was that we could make these types of abilities cancelable, but part of what makes abilities interesting in Overwatch is how often they come with certain drawbacks, which enemies can then capitalize on. This makes a little more sense. This argument, I think, is a little bit better than the all-in argument. However, I still feel like this ability, given the way it just performs, doesn't need that drawback. I feel like part of the beauty of it should be that you can outplay with it, not that whenever you use it, you're done, you're out of the fight. That's my opinion there. He follows this up by saying Pharah's ult, for example, is one of the most damaging attacks in the game, but comes with the considerable drawback that she is somewhat of a sitting duck when using it. Using her ult well then becomes a matter of balancing, dealing as much damage as possible to as many players as possible, with trying to make sure you aren't killed quickly after hitting the button. You'll see pro players hovering above a door just before enemies stream through it, unleashing their ultimate from that position, allows it to target a large cluster of players while giving herself still decent cover. I actually think Geoff kind of countered himself there and did my job for me a little bit. He talked about how Pharah's ult makes you very vulnerable and how some pro players use it in this very specific way in a doorway to protect themselves while still doing damage. How then do you suggest we use Reaper's Wraith form in a more skilled manner? You can't. Reaper's Wraith form is just a one-dimensional ability. You press shift, you leave, and given that the enemy knows when you're coming out of it just as much as you have no advantage coming out of Wraith form over the enemy player. Zero. So, like, far result, it was a good, I think I know what he was trying to say. Like, you have to skillfully use this ability, but Wraith form you can't use skillfully. You can use it to evade things, but then you're done. It's over. And you have no advantage even though you just avoided a huge ability from the enemy. And that's what I don't agree about this here. You can't more skillfully use Wraith form. There's like 2 levels. You don't know how to use it or you know how to use it. And that's it. The last case Geoff made against being able to cancel Wraith form was the following. For Reaper's case specifically, his Wraith form ability is very strong, but at least you know he can't attack you while he himself is unable to be attacked. Currently, you can try to time a shot to land just as it ends, meaning Reaper's Wraith form, if you've practiced enough. If he were able to cancel it freely, there would probably have to be a decent delay before he were able to fire again, to give his enemies enough warning. Otherwise, on your screen, he'd shoot you before you even saw the effect end, at least until someone invents zero latency internet. I feel like he highlighted one of my biggest problems with not being able to cancel Wraith form right there. He even says it. If you practice enough, you can time a shot to land on Reaper right as Wraith form is ending, which means Reaper has no element of surprise. As I said before, Reaper does not have an advantage coming out of Wraith form over anyone else, which effectively means Reaper's Wraith form is one-dimensional. You have to use it to escape. If you try to fight someone, if they've practiced enough, they're going to be able to hit you as you're leaving Wraith form. He basically countered himself, at least in my opinion, by saying Reaper's Wraith form should be very predictable and people should know how to counter it, but then by saying like someone like Pharah can use their ability more skillfully. You can't have both of those things. Reaper's Wraith form can't be used more skillfully because, like you said, it is at a set length of time and people can predict when you will come out of it. I don't think this argument is very strong against it, and I think Reaper could really use something like this. I don't think this logic works, which is probably what some other people are thinking as well. And Geoff also actually said, again, it isn't completely off the table for him, but I'm trying to give you guys an idea as to why it is the way it is to begin with, and that removing these costs that these abilities have isn't always good for the game as a whole. I feel like the costs definitely outweigh the pros on Reaper's Wraith form right now, at least as far as using it in a more aggressive manner goes. You have to use it to escape right now. And I'm not going to say that any more times because I've said it like 1,000 times, but that's my general thoughts on Wraith form in its current state. I honestly could talk about this for like hours on end because I personally really enjoy playing Reaper and used to play him a lot, but I tried to keep this video concise because you guys really like videos when they're concise. If you would like more though, be sure to tell me down below. If you like this style of video, be sure to tell me down below. Hopefully this made sense to you. If it did, be sure to leave a like and click that video on screen because that video on screen will allow you to discover the Fountain of Youth, and you'll never get old again if you click on that video, so do that. Anyway, I'll see you guys all later. Have a good one. Lone Hawk out.